We need to do it our end here, everybody, so hang on.
Good morning, Chair Postman, members Garrett and Vollendroff, staff and guests. The lobbies are open and the recording has begun.
Great, thank you. You need to turn your speaker on. Okay. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for your patience. Still getting a little echo. We're going to convene the board caucus meeting for Tuesday, November 29th, 2022. Our first item up today is licensing review and a forfeiture extension. And Becky Smith, our licensing director and regulation director, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you, David Postman and board members. I'm going to actually turn this over to Caitlin to walk us through this forfeiture. We're going to give some history because I know for some of the board members that this is their first forfeiture. So we want to make sure that we give some history about what's happened, that if we've given any extensions, what that looks like. And then we also have Penny Allen here to our AGs to provide you with any information or answer any questions as well. So Caitlin.
Sure. Thank you, Becky. Good morning, Chair Postman and board members Garrett and Vollendroff. My name is Caitlin Bomba. I'm the Policy and Education Manager in the Licensing Division. As Becky said, I'm here today to share a request for an extension to license forfeiture for a retail cannabis license, Seattle Trees Collective. I have emailed and provided you with an overview of the request along with the written request from the licensee. So first, to provide a background, a cannabis licensee is required to be open and operational for 12 consecutive weeks within a year. There are limited exemptions to this requirement if the licensee has been incapable of opening their business due to an action from a local city or county with jurisdiction over the licensee, so such as a ban, permitting, or zoning requirement. Outside of these exemptions, the board has the authority to grant exceptions to the license forfeiture process for licenses that have experienced circumstances outside of their control. So the licensing division monitors cannabis retail licensees by reviewing monthly sales reports and contacts licensees that are not operational. We contact the licensees, provide education on the laws and rules, and request documentation if the licensee meets an exemption. We also provide notice to those licensees that are subject to forfeiture. Seattle Trees Collective is currently subject to forfeiture on December 1st, 2022, and has requested an extension. The licensee closed their business and stopped reporting sales in March of 2022. The licensee states they ceased cannabis sales to limit risk and to also prepare for the move and upcoming sale of the business. While the licensees did have violations at their prior location, it ultimately ended in a settlement, but the license would not have been canceled. 3 months after closing their store, the licensee submitted a change of location request in June of 2022, and that application was approved on October 14th. In order for a licensee to be considered fully operational, they must be open for 12 consecutive weeks within a 12-month period. So this means starting in March of 2022, the licensee had 9 months until they needed to be fully operational. The licensee was contacted on October 26th and again on September 16th. Both times it was stated what the licensee must do to be considered fully operational and avoid license forfeiture. So the licensee is requesting an extension because they believe that the new business location should be considered a new license, and therefore the time period to be fully operational should begin when the change of location was approved. I will note that that is not our current practice, and the time period does not start over if the licensee moves location. The only time this would happen is if there was some type of permitting or zoning restriction that prevented the licensee from being fully operational. The licensee also states that they recently moved to the current location, and they believe that the change of location application was not processed in a timely manner, causing delays that were outside of their control. We do acknowledge that there was some delays in processing this application. The application took over 100 days to process, which is outside of our 90-day goal. The licensee also states that if they're forced to open immediately, they believe it would be a public and health and safety risk. The entity that is currently in process to buy the business is doing tenant improvements to the building and therefore will not be able to properly keep cannabis inventory secure, along with keeping the public safe in a construction zone. So with all of that, the licensee is requesting an extension to license forfeiture until the current pending assumption application is completed. The licensee is estimating this to be completed by January 15th of 2023. Becky, is there anything that you wanted to add or that I may have missed?
The only thing I'd like to add, a couple of things, is that it's been our experience when a business, especially a retail business, moves from one location to another, they usually don't shut down. That's really done. They find a new place, they start to make changes to those businesses, and then it's just changed over to the new license at the new location. We don't see a lot of businesses completely shut down for months in order for that to happen, because of course they're losing revenue during that time. So this is a bit unusual, and I think that's probably it. That we do have, we have had some extensions that we've allowed for. So we want to make sure that you're aware of those extensions. They've been very brief and short. We're talking weeks that we've allowed for an extension, and it has been due to material not being available to finish a new location. Caitlin, can you want to add the other circumstances around those exceptions?
Yeah, so since this law became into effect, there's been 4 other extensions total, and then 3 of them were in 2018. There was a death in an ownership structure, which they needed some more time, some construction challenges, and then some issues with a landlord that a licensee had that they needed some additional time to get operational at a new location. And then in December of 2022, there was some pandemic related, I will say, things that delayed the licensee from becoming fully operational. But as Becky mentioned, all extensions have been brief, in a matter of a few weeks of an extension.
This is Ollie.
Yeah.
I recall one, I think it was over in Eastern Washington. It was a delay in getting the steel or whatever to get the building in compliance. In this case, and with them trying to get the new location up to making it safe and on, why would we not allow something? I'm trying to see what direction are we leaning, because if they're trying to get a new building and we know all of this we know that this is legit and in process, and we know anyone who's doing anything in construction right now that there's a delay on everything as far as workers getting materials on. What are we saying here? As is it the length of time? What?
So I think the difference, Ollie, is that we have approved the location already. So their location is licensed. They're currently licensed. The
Right.
changes that they want to make within their structure is by choice. Some of the changes within the retail store. that we haven't heard that it's because of, that the delay in construction. That's not what we've heard from the licensee or from their attorney. We've only heard that they, that it's a construction safety zone because there's so much construction going on. So that I don't know that there's been any delays with permitting or any delays in receiving material.
But even something, I mean, from what I was reading, the delay has to do with them trying to get that location up to being safe, able to be safe with the products, on and on and on. To me, that's construction.
Yeah, that may well be. I don't know that that's something that they have voiced, but certainly it could be the case that the board has a right to grant the extension if that's what they choose to do.
Okay.
So as I read this, and I'm sorry, I'm getting an echo. I don't know if you all are, but I'll just go ahead. They do talk about several different issues, but it seems to me they're leaning most heavily on how long it took us to process this. And they say Seattle Trees believes that without delays with the licensing process that were not within their control, the assumption application would have been approved prior to that date. And so they set up several instances there where they submitted something and it took longer than expected. They're saying that's what would have made the difference. I haven't tried to add up all those days, but can you respond to that? Because it does seem that each time there was a submittal or something, there was some delay according to their letter.
So there certainly was some delay on licensing's part to process all of the paperwork that was submitted. It certainly wasn't as timely as they've suggested, but as Caitlin has said, that when they submitted the information to our investigator took 2 weeks longer to send information back of the changes that they needed to make to their lease agreement. And then that information was then sent back again. So there was a delay that our investigator was out sick. That certainly not an excuse, but it is just a fact that usually we get these done within 90 days, and it took us a little over 100 days.
I have a question just in terms of background for my sake, and that is, can somebody help me understand the rule, or why is this rule in place? What is this attempting to accomplish by limiting the amount of days they could be closed? Is it a revenue thing? I'm just curious about the background of this.
And Becky, I'm jumping in. I just know that some of it went back to the board, and with folks being able to hold on to license and not use license, that's where I think this is when the board, put something in place, because we were getting a lot of complaints and things from the community of folks that had license that they were just holding on to.
I see.
I'm answering that correctly, Becky?
And if I may add, this was a legislative law. I mean, this was a law for retailers to be open and operational, and back in 2017, I believe, and there was over 100 retailers, Ollie's correct, that were not open and operational, and so it was a way to make sure that folks were using their licenses. And now we're yep.
Okay.
But it was the sort of ill that was trying to be cured, right? Was we didn't want people wheeling and dealing licenses, as opposed to we wanted them to use their license to be in business operating the store.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
Which seems like that's this licensee's goal.
Right.
And as I look through the memo or the letter they sent, and I'm trying to add up the time, like it seems to me to be reasonable if we had some delays, we credit them for those delays in essence. And, they claim It took us a month to schedule the initial interview. The review and feedback took longer. On September 6th, after 6 weeks had passed, licensing was going to review the documents. And then it says ultimately took another month. So if you look at those things, and I don't know how precise we normally are in these things, but given the question Member Vollendorf just had in your answer on that and Member Garrett's input, you know, it doesn't look like these are people that are trying to be a license broker. They really want to open, and there were some delays. And that's how I would look at this, is there something then that we give at this end of it because there were some things that may have been beyond their control.
And I would agree with that. I support that perspective, and especially if they're looking at January 15th, Becky and Caitlin, I think is the date you said they're asking for the extension. And would that be the final date? And they're saying at that point they would be open and operational. Is that correct?
They're asking until the assumption application is completing, which they're hoping that be completed January 15th. They didn't give us an exact date, but that's what they're hoping for.
Is there any more decisions or reviews that we need to do in this process, or this now is all in their hands?
Well, we would need to approve the extension, correct?
Right.
Correct.
But I mean-
And then it would be up to them to make sure that they are in compliance if an extension was approved, and we would be monitoring that and licensing.
But there's no other.
Yeah.
Or what is, you know, is there a floor plan approval that you have to do, or some other plan review? So if
Nope.
they had an extension, they just then need to meet the deadline of that extension. There's nothing that they could say was out of their control. Or there's nothing they could say was on the agency side.
Right.
Who knows what happens with local government inspections or construction material or whatever, but that wouldn't be our bag. Right.
Correct.
I
So they have
understand
to
that.
finish their paperwork for the assumption. And that's certainly, you know, that the paperwork would be on them. Of course, we'll be watching it more closely to make sure that we're extremely responsive and to make sure that assumption happens as quickly as possible. But that would be the only thing that we're waiting on, is for the paperwork for the assumption. They've already submitted it. So right now we're just waiting for some documents on their end.
So this January the 15th date, was that their date?
Well, they said the middle of January, estimating. We asked for a exact date, but that's difficult for them to provide because they wanted when the assumption application is completed. So it's kind of a.
I think we would need an exact date, at least I would want an exact date if there's any extension. And I wonder about what next steps would be here, but maybe there needs to be a little further conversation. And I don't want to speak for their board members, but if we were to approve an extension, there would have to be a very clear date that everybody understood what that meant. And I would not go any longer than what they've asked for, even if they come down and say it takes more. That would be, I think, looking at the record, that would be more than generous to give them that extension. So
I have a quick question. Oh, go ahead, Ollie.
I was going to say, I think given the extension, we're being generous. I just know that when you are doing tenant improvement or whatever the terminology and the goals, David, it can get missed. I mean, some things out of their control as far as getting, I mean, it took my neighbor 9 months to get a kitchen cabinet.
yeah, I understand.
I mean, things they do happen in these
Sure.
processes. So I don't want us to say, okay, this is it. If we know that it's a business that is not intentional and they're trying to get up and running and there's no shenanigans or anything going on.
But it also might be possible that they need to begin operations before every piece of trim is in place or something of
Yeah.
that sort. I mean, I think we have to have some
yeah.
lever here to say this. And again, I don't see evidence that these people are trying to broker this license. If something like that were to happen, there was a different assumption or something, then I think we would reconsider this very quickly.
Right. Right.
So my final question is about any potential problem with setting precedents at all? Does licensing or Penny or anybody have any concern about that? It sounds like this is a decision the board makes, so it doesn't sound like there would, but I wanted to ask that question.
So there's not. So this is a decision that the board makes. You can certainly give them an extension of time, and that with that, of course, always that there's always some risk at a later point, but no, that's completely within your purview to extend time for them. And Penny's probably not going to be able to respond to that. So.
And then what is our next step here? Does the board actually have to take action on this, or can we just provide you with that guidance today, which is we'd like you to have a conversation with them about figuring out what that is, or and I don't know if maybe Penny could help us on that piece. What is the action that has to be taken?
So it's my understanding that we will need something in writing from the board, providing an extension that we'd be happy to go back and get a date, have a conversation with their attorney and get a specific date. But if the idea is to provide an extension with a date, then we'll provide you with that date, and then you could provide the licensing division with a either the signed document in writing approving the extension with the date documented on the information that we provided. I think there's a place there for a signature.
Okay. And I would just say, when talking about date, I would be as strict as we can, even though we are, I think, being generous and giving an extension. It need not even be for the full 6 weeks that they've asked for. I think we need some sense of why that is. If in fact the regulatory piece of this, the licensing part of this is largely done, they should make a case to you of why they need that much time, because it's not going to be an open-ended thing of whenever you're able to get it all done and shiny. At least from my perspective, I wouldn't be open to that. So
I would agree with that. And I would also be looking at their communication with us between now and whatever deadline we set, and how, are they communicating with us? Are they keeping us up to date? And, what's the progress looking like?
And I was going to say, if I recall in the past when we were doing this and we had license that was not open, and I am thinking the one I'm thinking of that was in Spokane or somewhere, we were doing that, and we were keeping in communication with them, and they were keep in communication with us as things were occurring. But if I recall, even in that case, and it might have been in another one, there were some additional delays that was out of their control, but licensing, the communication was going on. And things that, even though there was a date, there were things that occurred out of their control that with the communication, we worked with them.
So that's why I think it would behoove us to know, okay, what is it you want this 6 weeks for? I don't know how much leeway we have in asking them for those details, and then regular updates to make sure that that's happening. And then if they come to some point and they say this is out of our control, it should be something that we've already seen. They need, I think, to lay out a roadmap to completion, and tell us why they need some more time here. It's not just because of the delays that they cite here. There's something they want done. They're working for improvements there, they say, that need some more time. So tell us what it is, and then let us know how you're doing on that regularly. Keep us up to date. And the sooner we can complete this, the better, I think.
Yep, I would agree. And we have a staff, Caitlin has a staff that works directly with the licensee and making sure that they're providing updates. So we'll
Right.
make sure that she's aware of continuing to reach out to them and some responsibility for them to reach out to us as well.
Great. Then I think that's what we'll do. We'll let you work on that and come up with a date, and I'm sure one of the AGs can help us figure out what that communication from us to you needs to look like and include, and we'll get that done as soon as we see it, I think.
That sounds great.
Okay, I will
Well,
do that
thank you guys for your
promptly.
time.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I really appreciate your guys' help on this. All right. That's so we have one more item on the agenda before we have an executive session, and that is board member and executive assistant reports. Members Garrett or Volodroff, anything to share for the good of the order? No? Okay.
I have nothing.
I hope you all had a good Thanksgiving. That's what I'm saying.
You all have snow there?
Just tiny bit.
Okay.
Do you?
Yes. Yeah, but I think it's gonna be gone in the afternoon.
It was
I'm
largely
hoping.
gone by the time I got to work, so
Yeah.
after my treacherous 5-minute commute. Okay, so with that, we're going to go into an executive session to evaluate the qualifications of an applicant for public employment or to review the performance of a public employee. We were scheduling this for 30 minutes, and so we have till 11 now at this point. But when we complete it, I will come back into this meeting and adjourn the meeting. We have no other public business that'll happen on the meeting, but if you want to hang out till we adjourn, I will come back on this. So at this point, the board members are going to disconnect from this Teams meeting, start a different Teams meeting for our executive session, but we'll keep this meeting going on Gretchen's computer. So if any members of the public or staff want to stay online, they can do that, and they'll be here, and we'll come back and join it. So with that, I will be back in about half an hour to adjourn the meeting. So I'll see you all in the other meeting link. Hello, everybody. It is a little late, it's 11:03, but we've completed our executive session. And now the board caucus will adjourn for the day. Thank you all very much. Careful in the snow. Have a great day.
Thank you. Bye.
See you.